The morning sun spilled over golden rows of corn, the kind that whispered when the wind passed through. For Wade Coburn, a quiet man who'd spent half his life serving his country, this was peace, the rhythm of soil, the hum of an old tractor, the smell of harvest. Then came the screech of tires. A silver Lexus tore across the edge of his field, flattening young stalks. The driver slammed the door, marched out with a clipboard, and shouted, "You're violating HOA code!" Wade cut the engine. Calm, steady. He didn't even live under her HOA. But Karen didn't care about facts. She cared about control. And within minutes, her mistake would turn his quiet field into a crime scene, with her name all over it. The town of Ridgehaven had changed a lot in 20 years. What used to be acres of family farms was now lined with identical houses, trimmed lawns, and mailboxes that matched down to the number font. But at the far edge, past the concrete and cul-de-sacs, one piece of land still looked like it belonged to another time. That was Wade Coburn's farm. It had been in his family for 3 generations, and when his father passed, it became the one place Wade could still call home. After 22 years of service overseas, he returned to the soil he'd grown up on. No more drills, no more sandstorms. Just dawn light, a tractor older than he was, and the slow, healing rhythm of hard work. Every morning started the same. Coffee. Weather check. Then the walk to the field, boots sinking into rich earth, the air cool, the horizon wide and quiet. It was peace earned through patience. That's why, the first time he saw her, Wade thought he was imagining things. A woman in heels stood at the edge of his field, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. Her sunglasses gleamed under the morning light. She looked out of place like she'd taken a wrong turn leaving a real estate office. "Excuse me," she called, stepping carefully to avoid mud. "Are you the property owner?" Wade shut off the tractor, wiping his hands on a rag. "Yes, ma'am. Can I help you?" She smiled, the kind of smile that hides sharp edges. "I'm Karen Netter, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. I wanted to discuss some violations we've received." Wade tilted his head. "Violations?" Karen lifted her clipboard and read, like a prosecutor delivering a verdict. Visible machinery within residential sightlines, unregistered outbuildings, excessive dust emissions. He let her finish, then calmly replied, "Ma'am, this land isn't part of Willow Creek." Karen blinked. "Oh, that can't be right." "It's been farmland since 1952, Wade said. "Your HOA stops a quarter-mile that way." For a moment, the only sound was wind brushing through the corn. Then her voice sharpened. "Well, whether it's official or not, your tractor is an eyesore. You should consider what kind of impression it gives the neighborhood." Wade didn't respond. He'd been trained to recognize when arguing was useless. Some people didn't want understanding. They wanted control. Karen stood there another few seconds, tapping her pen. "We'll see about this," she said finally, and turned back toward her Lexus. He watched the car disappear behind the tree line, a faint trail of dust rising behind it. He'd met her type before, not in uniform, but in life. Entitlement-wearing perfume. That night, as he locked up the barn, the first notice appeared. A bright yellow envelope taped to his gate. HOA violation. Unapproved structure pending removal. He laughed out loud. He didn't even live under HOA jurisdiction. Still, he kept the paper. Veterans learned to document everything. By the end of the week, there were 3 more. Each one more aggressive, more absurd. Unauthorized crops, improper storage of equipment, even excessive wildlife activity. It was harassment, dressed up as bureaucracy. Wade stayed calm. He'd fought battles with higher stakes than this. Instead of reacting, he installed cameras on the gate, updated the land deeds, and made sure every square foot was legally documented. But Karen wasn't finished. She started driving by slowly every morning, window half down, pretending to talk on her phone. Her HOA newsletter featured an article titled "Community Standards Threatened by Agricultural Neglect." There were no names, but everyone knew who she meant. Then came the drone. A small, buzzing shape hovered over Wade's field one afternoon, darting between rows, circling his barn. He didn't even look up, just pointed his phone, snapped photos, and saved them. That evening, he filed a formal complaint with local authorities. When the officer on the line heard who the drone belonged to, he sighed. Karen Netter again? Seems like it, Wade said. The officer chuckled. You're not the first, just stay calm, Mr. Coburn. Folks like her thrive on reaction. I've dealt with worse, Wade said quietly. For a while, things went quiet. The summer turned to fall, and the corn grew tall and gold under the sun. Wade worked dawn to dusk, careful, methodical, patient. It wasn't about money. It was about rebuilding what his father had left him. But Karen hadn't forgotten. She was waiting. It started small again. Spray-painted numbers on his mailbox, trash left at the edge of his fence line, a car idling outside his gate at 2 a.m. Wade didn't take the bait. He just added more cameras. Then one morning, as harvest season began, he found another letter taped to his gate, this one different. Not an HOA notice, but a handwritten note in perfect cursive. You don't belong here. This neighborhood has standards. He folded the note, slipped it into his pocket, and went back to work. The following week, his friend Officer Cordell stopped by. A sturdy man with a kind face, he leaned against the hood of his cruiser, watching the combine move slowly through the field. You okay out here, Wade? I'm fine, Wade said. Cordell nodded. You know, she's been calling the department every other day. Claims you're violating noise ordinances. I work daylight hours only. I know, Cordell said. I told her that. But she's not letting up. You might want to be ready for her to pull something stupid. Wade smiled faintly. Always am. Cordell studied him for a moment, then nodded. You still keeping those cameras running? Every one of them. Good. Keep it that way. As Cordell drove off, Wade looked across the field. Beyond the rows of corn, he could see the rooftops of Willow Creek glinting in the sun. Uniform, identical, lifeless. He didn't hate anyone there, but he did resent what that place represented, the slow swallowing of the old world by people who thought order meant ownership. The next morning, he got up early. The air was thick with the scent of harvest, that sweet, earthy perfume that only comes once a year. Wade climbed into his tractor, started the engine, and eased into the first row. The machine hummed like an old friend, steady, faithful. For a few hours, the world was simple again. Then came the sound of tires, fast, angry, a Lexus, silver. He didn't even have to look to know. It came too close this time, veering off the gravel and onto the edge of his property. And when he saw what she was about to do, he realized the fight wasn't about property lines anymore. It was about power. Wade thought she'd finally leave him alone. But that morning, Karen didn't stop at the fence. She went straight for the tractor, and in one reckless move, she made herself the headline of the year. The hum of the tractor filled the morning air, low and steady like a heartbeat. Wade kept his eyes on the rows ahead, one hand on the steering wheel, the other resting near the throttle. It was harvest season, the busiest, most crucial time of year, and the last thing he wanted was another interruption from Karen Netter. But fate, it seemed, didn't care much for peace. The silver Lexus tore down the gravel road, dust trailing behind it like a storm. Wade frowned, his instincts instantly alert. Karen's car slowed just at the edge of his property. And then, unbelievably, crossed over the boundary. Don't do it, he muttered to himself. Already knowing she would, Karen slammed the car door and stormed toward the field, her heels stabbing into the soil. You're violating county zoning laws, she shouted over the tractor's engine. Wade shut off the machine, exhaling slowly. Ma'am, we've been through this. I'm not under your HOA. I farm on private land. Karen folded her arms. You keep saying that, but I've got complaints from residents about noise, debris, and unsightly equipment. This, she gestured at the combine, is unacceptable in a residential community. He kept his voice calm. This land was here before your subdivision. You built your community around me. Then maybe it's time you sell and move on, she snapped. The words hit harder than she probably meant. Wade's father had built this farm with his bare hands, long before Karen's world of neighborhood committees and yard inspections existed. Wade's eyes narrowed. Not gonna happen. Karen's smile returned, thin and venomous. We'll see. She turned to walk away, but the crunch of gravel behind her made her spin around again. Wade had climbed back into his tractor, starting the next pass. The sound of the engine drowned her protests, sending a clear message: conversation over. Karen stood at the edge of the field, red-faced, gripping her phone. "You'll regret this!" she shouted, before marching back to her car. Wade shook his head and went back to work. For the next few hours, things were quiet. The sun rose higher, the corn came down row by row, and Wade started to believe the storm had passed. But when he saw the glint of that Lexus again, this time speeding far too close, his stomach sank. Karen wasn't just there to talk this time. Through the mirrors, he saw her pointing her phone at him, recording. She shouted something he couldn't hear over the engine. Then suddenly the Lexus lurched forward, and tires spinning in loose dirt. The impact was quick and violent. The car slammed into the side of the tractor's rear tire, jolting the whole machine. Metal screeched. The engine sputtered and died. Wade jumped down, heart pounding, dust and smoke rising between them. "Are you out of your mind?" Karen stumbled out, waving her phone. "You tried to hit me? I have it on camera." "You rammed me!" Wade barked. She held her phone higher, trembling but defiant. "The police are on their way." "You're finished, mister. You people think you can do whatever you want? You people?" Wade repeated, his voice low and dangerous. Karen froze, realizing too late how it sounded. Within minutes, sirens cut through the still air. 2 police cruisers pulled up fast, gravel flying. Officers stepped out, hands resting casually on their holsters. Karen rushed forward. "Officers!" "Thank God." "He tried to run me over!" Wade raised his hand slightly, palms open, the way he'd been trained to de-escalate a situation, even one he wasn't at fault for. "Sir, step away from the vehicle," one officer ordered. Wade obeyed. "That's my tractor." "She hit me," Karen cut in quickly. "That's a lie." "He came at me when I told him he was violating HOA policy. He's been harassing me for weeks." The officer turned toward Wade. "Sir, do you have ID?" "Yes, in my pocket." Slowly, Wade handed it over, saying nothing. He knew better than to argue. The other officer checked Karen's car, then walked back. "Looks like she hit the tractor tire," he said quietly to his partner. "Not the other way around," Karen overheard. No, that's not right." "You didn't see it." "Ma'am, we'll review footage," the officer replied, but his tone was measured, cautious. "I have video evidence," Karen said, fumbling with her phone. "He threatened me." Wade spoke calmly. "Officer, I have multiple cameras around the property. Everything's recorded." The 2 officers exchanged looks. The older one nodded. "We'll need to see that footage," but Karen wasn't done. "He shouldn't even be here. This land is part of Willow Creek." The younger officer sighed. "Ma'am, this isn't HOA jurisdiction. That was settled years ago." Karen's face turned crimson. Well, it should be." The officer straightened. "Ma'am, you need to step back. We're investigating an accident." Karen's voice rose to a near shriek. "You're taking his side? He's dangerous. Look at him!" The words hung heavy in the air, venom wrapped in fear. The older cop stiffened, a look of recognition in his eyes. He'd seen this before. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "I think we're done here." "No, we're not," Karen snapped, stepping toward Wade. "He belongs—" "Ma'am!" The officer's tone turned sharp. "You just struck private property with your vehicle. You're lucky no one was hurt." Karen blinked, stunned. What?" "Step back from the scene, please," he said firmly. Wade said nothing. He didn't gloat, didn't smirk. He just stood still, arms folded, watching the unraveling. The officers reviewed his camera footage right there on the spot. It showed everything. Karen's car crossing onto his property, accelerating, and colliding with the tractor. The younger officer shook his head. Clear as day, the older one wrote something on his pad. "Ma'am, we'll need you to come down for questioning. Possible reckless endangerment and property damage." Karen's face went pale. "You're arresting me?" "Detaining," the officer corrected. As they led her toward the cruiser, she kept shouting, "You'll regret this." "I know, people. I'll have your badge." The older officer looked at Wade. "Sorry you had to deal with that." "Sir, I've dealt with worse." Wade said quietly. He watched as the cruiser drove away, its red and blue lights flashing across the gold cornfields. For the first time in months, the air felt still again. But as the dust settled and the sun began to dip low, Wade noticed something else. Another car approaching from the distance. Not a police cruiser. Not Karen's Lexus. A black SUV with tinted windows. It rolled up slow. The window lowered halfway. A calm, well-dressed man inside nodded at him. "Mr. Coburn? Yes? I'm Richard Denton," the man said. "County Zoning Commission. Mind if I take a look around? I believe you've been having some issues with Willow Creek." Wade hesitated, instincts prickling again. "Just making sure your property lines are properly filed," the man said smoothly. "Purely procedural." "Go ahead," Wade replied. But his gut told him this wasn't over. As the SUV rolled forward, the man's gaze lingered just a little too long. Karen might be in cuffs, but Wade had just stepped into something much bigger, something that went beyond one angry HOA president. Wade thought the fight ended when the police drove off with Karen, but the black SUV wasn't there for paperwork. It was there for him. And what they were about to uncover would shake the entire neighborhood to its core.